What girl didn't dream of marrying a prince? But will such love bring happiness? Listen to the story of Isabeau of Bavaria and find out where such fantasies lead. Little Isabeau sat in the corner turret of her austere Bavarian castle and imagined her wedding, and a young man with an elegant crown on his head for the 100th time. He puts a ring on her finger. She had no idea how much she should be afraid of her dreams. Suddenly her father came into her room. He hugged her and said,
"My little girl, your mother is dead, but I've made arrangements for your future. One of the minor German dukes will marry you when the time comes."
11-year-old Isabella wasn't too upset about her mother's death. The Duchess of Bavaria barely spent time with her daughter when she was alive, and Isabella ignored the promise of her marriage to the minor duke. Dreaming of a prince was much more pleasant. 4 years passed. Suddenly strangers knocked on the door of the castle. These were the ambassadors of the French king. Isabeau's father urgently called her. She ran through the cold halls of the castle, not realizing that her dreams would soon come true.
"Isabella, the Prince of France is wooing you, but I know that the kings of Scotland and Castile are negotiating the marriage of their daughters. If the prince chooses one of them, he will refuse you before the altar, and you will be shamed forever. Do you want to marry the Prince of France?"
"I do."
"Well, let it be."
Thus, Isabeau got a card of the chariot in which she was to spend the coming weeks. They immediately packed her things, and she went on her trip. In her 15 years, she had never been outside her castle walls. That's why she couldn't tear herself away from the window all the time. She made a stop in Brussels, at the home of Isabella's aunt. The Countess received her niece cordially. She learned about the purpose of the trip and immediately arranged the wardrobe check.
"Oh, my God. Poor girl. Your outfits are worn out and gone out of fashion. That's what it means to lose your mother so early."
The Countess gave her the best dresses. She called the French ambassadors.
"Chevalier, I beg you, make sure my niece looks flawless on her date."
Surprisingly, the ambassadors turned out to be very responsible, and when they got to Amiens, they bought another dress for Isabeau in the latest Parisian fashion. On the same day, she was taken to Charles VI. Isabeau was very nervous. Will the prince choose her? He was only 17. At first glance, Isabeau fell in love with this sophisticated young man.
"I have only one dream. You have to become my wife as soon as possible."
The wedding was celebrated in July, so Isabeau became the Queen of France. Her husband had already become the king and was called Charles the Beloved. It seemed that the life of Isabeau would be cloudless. She quickly bore the king an heir and 3 more children. And she was so busy with these chores that she did not even pay attention to the strange story with her husband. He and his army rode through the forest near Le Mans, and he suddenly attacked his knights with the shout,
"Go ahead, on the traitors."
And he managed to kill one of them until the king was thrown to the ground and calmed down. I should make the explanation here. Kings in those days were forced from generation to marry their relatives. Yes, sometimes it was a very distant relationship, but even this helped to accumulate genes that caused medical problems. The diseases of the aristocrats were very insidious. For example, it could be hemophilia, like Tsarevich Alexei in Russia at the beginning of the 20th century. But Charles VI got the madness card. It was only getting worse. Once, he set people on fire right at the ball. And he almost burned himself at this time. But the scariest thing was that he stopped recognizing Isabeau and treated her and their children more and more terribly. Poor Isabeau didn't know what to do. She only wanted to be just a good wife. In the rare days of Charles' enlightenment, she continued to stay with him to give birth to his children. Sometimes it ended with horrible scenes, and even a beating of the queen.
Who's this disgusting woman? Why is she looking at me? Remove her immediately.
The king shouted in a fit of madness. Despite all this, Isabella bore the king 12 children. But things didn't get any better. The days of Charles's insanity became weeks, and the weeks became months. However, the king did not object to the queen solving the issues of the state, while he could not do it himself. So Isabeau got the Empress card. She had to rule France. She found herself between the Duke Louis of Orleans and the Dukes of Burgundy. Isabeau was trying to prevent a civil war. Meanwhile, her eldest son, the heir to the throne, fell ill and soon died. The crowd in the streets raged, blaming her for the heir's death. Soon after, her daughter also died. The civil war was unstoppable. More recently, prosperous France was plunging into dark times. The dirt rained down on poor Isabeau from all sides. The Burgundians spread rumors that she was the mistress of Louis of Orleans when she was at his side. Louis of Orleans kidnapped her from the palace and imprisoned her when she defected to the Burgundians. Lawlessness and incessant massacre reigned in the country. The worst of all, her children, one by one, died before they reached the age of 16. Isabella could only weep at their graves. Meanwhile, the Duke of Burgundy, John the Fearless, killed Louis of Orleans, and the son of Isabeau, the heir to the throne, who lived to adulthood, the future King Charles VII killed the Duke of Burgundy, thereby ending the war. But he also lost the throne due to the murder. Isabeau had to sign the right of inheritance in favor of the King of England, her daughter's husband. Soon Charles VI, her insane husband, died. But even earlier, her son-in-law, the English king, died too. Her grandson was the heir to the crown. Meanwhile, the war was raging in France. Joan of Arc's troops stormed Paris to attempt to regain the throne for Charles VII. Isabella looked helplessly at the assault of the city from the window of the palace. She was old and abandoned by everyone. However, Paris did not fall. And a couple of years later, the troops of her grandson entered the city. She saw him from the balcony of the palace and could not hold back her tears. Isabeau died soon. Only 5 of her 12 children survived. The Grim Reaper had got his harvest. The money left by Isabeau was not enough for a funeral, so her body was loaded onto a boat and taken to the monastery of Saint Denis, which paid for the burial. Already after the death of Isabella, her son Charles VII regained the throne, taking it from his nephew. But Isabeau was not destined to know about it. She died thinking that her dreams of the prince ended in a terrible disaster for the whole country and her poor babies. Yes, the dreams about a prince may not be what you thought, but it does not mean that you should forget about them. So get ready for the unexpected turns of the Wheel of Fortune. You need to learn in advance how to make your decisions at the right time.